Okay, Emily, what's up? I just said this, so maybe it already like killed some momentum, but maybe I'll say it again just because we're recording. But this is the first ever recorded podcast of the Footwear Intern podcast. So, welcome, Emily.
Thank you for having me. An honor to be the first.
Yeah, this is exciting. Super stoked. Super grateful that you were willing to sit with me here over this Riverside internet connection and chat shoes.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to, I guess, give a little intro on what this is gonna be like, and maybe I said this is like maybe it's just for the listeners will be your parents, my parents, and like our like some friends from school. But if that's it, it's still fun. So I guess me personally, I love origin stories. I'm not a reader, like 0%. Super slow and don't enjoy it. But if it's a book like an origin story on businesses being started, like I love One Tough Mother is about Gert Boyle in Colombia, or like Nike Shoe Dog is interesting, and Patagonia has one as well. Let My People Go Surfing. I don't know, like those books. For me, Vans has one too. Like I forget what it's called. It's like Off the Wall or something like that. Oh no, it's called Authentic. Um, those books are like interesting to me. I don't know. So I love to hear people's origin stories, and I love footwear design, and both of us are footwear designers. And in my like trajectory of like trying to connect with people, I love to hear how people got into footwear, because for me at least it was difficult, and it's like a very competitive industry and limited opportunities. So I think it's interesting to hear how people got into it, and so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And hopefully, well, one, it's going to be interesting. It's your story, but hopefully it's helpful to people that are looking to get into the footwear industry as well. So that's kind of what we're going through today. Emily, does that sound good?
Oh, that sounds great. Always love like talking about that stuff. I always find it interesting because everyone's is so different. But I guess for me it was like I always liked art and I played
Yeah.
sports. So I feel like that's kind of the two things. But like growing up, I'm one of four. We all played sports year round, multiple sports at once. Um, And then I also loved like painting and drawing, and like I remember when I was finally allowed to bike around town by myself, my mom would let me go to the library. And that was my one place I could be like, wow, I'm independent. I'm an
That's
adult
cool.
now. And I'm like 10 years old. And I would go and sit in this one like book aisle where they had a bunch of these like white books about animals, and like
Hmm.
they had like the anatomy drawings of the animals and stuff. So I would actually plant myself there and like draw the books and the skeletons of the animals. And I remember doing that a lot over the summers, and then I would take the books out and do it at home. And then I always just loved painting as I got into like high school and stuff, got more and more into painting. I unfortunately don't do it as much anymore because now that creative is like a job for me, I
Yeah.
like the time away from it. But I went to well, in high school I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I could do. Um, High school was very small. I was doing AP art at the same time a seventh grader was doing art in the class too. So I didn't have as much like information other than that you could do graphic design and architecture.
Yeah.
My great aunt is a graphic designer. She went to Pratt, and then my dad actually studied architecture. So I knew of those
Okay.
routes. And I remember my dad would tell me, don't do architecture. So I kind of just went graphic design. And because my aunt went to Pratt, I ended up going to Pratt and um, ended up playing basketball there as well. I went there originally with a major of communication design, and that's all I knew I could do. I was like, okay, maybe I could do something with graphic design or like sports marketing, but I don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And what was cool about Pratt was that you could do freshman year. It was called foundation year. So you take a class in different majors. And so I was in a class with like painting majors and photography majors and interior design majors. And there was one class called 3D, which was not like computer 3D, but like building clay sculptures, working in the wood shop, drawing with charcoal on newsprint. And my professor is an industrial designer, and he came up to me and was like, "Is anyone in your family an architect?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Do you know industrial design?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, you should switch your major." And I was like, "But what is it?" So he showed me around, and I ended up switching to industrial design, which introduced me.
This is your first year, right?
Yeah, this is my freshman year of college,
Cool.
and then sophomore year is when I was officially an industrial design major, and I then was doing all the classes, learning what it was. I loved the hands-on nature of it. I loved the sketching, loved like process, and at Pratt there wasn't much like sports going on. It was like tableware, furniture, a little bit of like medical product design, and that's initially what I was going into. I had a job lined up for that. And I always liked sports. I played basketball in college, had injuries, was inspired by the brace I had to wear. So I didn't really know what I was kind of doing other than to get a job out of college. Yeah. And then Googled master's programs. The University of Oregon's sports product design program came up, which is where I met you and some awesome people, and ended up getting in and went on there. And then that's where I learned about like, oh, I could design shoes. This is cool. And from there, just kind of got into it.
Yeah. Okay, so
yeah.
Here, one question with that. So let's like, when you started your, like you shifted over to industrial design. At that point, there was still like no connection with sports or footwear. It was just like I like drawing, I like building.
I liked drawing, I liked building. I wanted to do like brace design originally, like work for like McDavid, like ankle braces. Okay. I had to wear a big shoulder brace because I had shoulder injuries. And I was inspired by that and actually redesigned the brace. And then I re-injured my shoulder and needed a second surgery on it. So it's kind of ironic how that ended up happening. But initially I wanted to do like braces for athletes.
Yeah.
That was my closest of like, ooh, okay, medical, okay, I can get close to sports with this.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was at least at that point.
That's cool. You like that. That's pretty unique to have like graphic design and architecture so close to like your upbringing, and I feel like that's kind of like I get, at least when I talk to somebody about like product design, because they're like, are you an engineer or a graphic designer or what's the and that's like kind of how I explain it, is kind of, and maybe like architect in that space too, but like that like sweet spot in between there. Would you agree? Or
yeah, it's a kind of a bit of both. I don't know, like I mean, one of my sisters is a mechanical engineer, and I'm like, I feel like I can't call myself an engineer because she studied engineering.
For sure.
But it's nice to have someone in the family who I can talk design with and understands what you can do in this field, and it's not like, I'm just going to be a painter, which a lot of people do that. I have friends who do that, but I don't think my parents probably would have wanted me to go that route. But yeah, it's definitely like a mix of design, engineering, and it was helpful to have someone who, when I was looking at what to do, understood kind of that field and understood what I could maybe do with it.
Yeah, so. That's cool.
Yeah.
When you then, so you heard about sports product design program at the University of Oregon. At this point, you're just like, okay, this is like my design route into sport.
Yes, I had a job lined up to do more commercial industrial design, like exercise equipment. I interned at the company I was supposed to work at, and then built this like full-scale exercise equipment. So again, was kind of like, oh, equipment, medical, sports, sure. And then what I Googled like sports product like master's programs or something, and that came up. So it was just from Google, and I was like, oh, I guess like someone has to make shoes, right? So that was kind of it. And then I got into it. I did like a little 30-day of footwear
Yeah.
like thing that I wanted to do. And then after graduating Pratt, I took like a little footwear class through Pratt in the summer. But I graduated into COVID, so it was all on Zoom and whatnot. But then
Oh, that's cool.
I kind of figured out, okay, this exists. There's a whole niche industry of this. This is kind of cool. So,
Because you came into the program at the University of Oregon, and at least from my memory, like you were already, I know you were exploring apparel as well,
yes.
but I feel like you were pretty like off the jump into footwear. Because I mean, and you got the internship with Under Armour pretty quickly thereafter too, right?
Yeah, I kind of went from, braces and equipment, a little bit of apparel, and then I did footwear. I kind of jumped around a bit. But yes, I jumped into footwear pretty quickly. I feel like within my first year, because we had the Speed Hack project with Speedland guys, which was really cool because that was like my first real footwear project and was cool to do. But yes, then I had the internship at Under Armour on their footwear innovation team, which was also really cool to see like what innovation could be. Again, it was tough because it was around COVID, so I know I didn't get to have like the full experience of it, but my mentor did like a really awesome job with like setting up meetings and being like, do you have any questions about footwear, or do you have any questions about your project? And I was just learning more and more about it. And so I think, yeah, within that first year at U of O, I kind of was like, okay, yeah, footwear.
That's cool. And so also like sidebar back to your library days. I remember at the University of Oregon, you drawing like the feet, like bone structure really well. Is
Yes.
that a mismemory, or is that's correct, right?
Yes, that's correct. I have an anatomy book that my grandma bought me for my birthday one year. But I always found like anatomy to be really interesting to draw.
Yeah.
And maybe this was taking in from the Pratt days of like the model coming in and you doing your 20-minute like model drawing and stuff like that. But I always found like anatomy really interesting and like the muscles and the bones. But yeah, a couple of my projects I did draw like the foot bone structure.
Yeah, because that's a lot of times when I talk to people, I say like the one like big thing in footwear that's like unsaid that a lot of people do when it comes to drawing is that a lot of people like trace to like get things proportionally correct or whatever, or to make it look nice. But I remember and so since I've seen a lot of people like put some like anatomy in their like design portfolio or their design process, but you are like actually doing it. And I remember being so impressed by right, yeah, your ability there with like the foot anatomy, because I feel like maybe some people in the footwear space like fake it to make it when it comes to like, here's a foot, here's my design around the foot, but yours is legit. Like you were like, here's the bone structure, this is what we're thinking through, this is how we're wrapping around the foot and thinking of different processes there. I always thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it definitely took some practice to kind of get proportions down. The first couple were probably not the greatest, and I'm glad you didn't see those. But then I kind of got the hang of it, which was kind of nice to be able to do. I don't do that as much anymore, though. I got to get back into that.
Yeah, we need to see more like feet structures coming out of you, Emily.
Yeah, I need to draw like the whole body, muscle and bone, and
there you go.
the whole thing.
So you're at the University of Oregon, you're leaning towards footwear. What's like the process, like the red thread and like getting into your first internship with Under Armour? Because it sounds like you've had some like work experience prior, but this is like your first footwear job.
I remember in my interview was the first question they asked me about was the 30-day like challenge I did for footwear, because that was my only footwear project.
Yeah.
The rest of the projects I had were kind of like, it was like a animal protection device, that shoulder brace I designed. So I showed a lot of process. I just didn't have any footwear besides that. But I remember that they asked me about that specifically, and I was like, it was kind of like, I just wanted to learn how to draw shoes, and I
Yeah.
made a Home Depot collab shoe, a shake and bake shoe,
Oh,
a
I
Swiss
remember seeing
Army
those. Yeah, those
shoe.
are sick.
Yeah, that's like that was the first thing they asked me about in that interview, which was pretty cool that someone was like, "Oh, this is interesting."
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of was like the thing. I think that helped me get it. I'm sure there are other things, but I remember that happening, and I was like, "Ooh, that's pretty cool. Someone likes it."
Yeah. Was Under Armour the only place you had interviewed with at the time? Or were...
Yes, but I was interviewing also for their apparel innovation internship,
Okay.
and I actually ended up getting offered both, which was, I was like, whoa, this is really cool, and I ended up kind of deciding footwear. But yeah, because also I had to apply very early, I remember. It was like
Yeah.
I applied before the program actually started, which
That's
was
cool.
crazy early.
Yeah. So did you applied to Under Armour before the program started?
Yes, yeah.
At the University of Oregon?
Yeah, so I didn't have any
Oh, wow.
UVO
That
work
is crazy
in
early.
it.
Yeah.
But I had UVO probably, I think, like on my resume at that point. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why then you're offered both? Why do you pick footwear instead of apparel?
That's a good question. Oh, I remember debating this for a long time because I think
I remember you having this debate too. I know this is like years ago, but
yes, and I don't know if I forget who I actually like I was like talking to about it, but I remember being told like footwear sketches a lot more
yeah.
than apparel. I think apparel, certain companies or certain parts of apparel, and I could be totally wrong about this because I haven't actually worked in apparel, but I don't think there's as much sketching. There's more like sampling,
Yeah.
which is very cool. And since I like working with my hands, I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I think footwear, what sold me on it was that there was more like sketching involved, and then the mix of the soft goods and hard goods. Since I had that like past experience from
Mhm.
ID, so I think that's kind of what solidified footwear for me.
Yeah. I think you made the right choice. That's my
Me
opinion.
too. I'm kind of glad with my choice. Maybe one day I'll get into apparel. It seems interesting, and I have friends who are in it, like currently, and seems really cool. But I'm
Yeah.
happy with footwear for right now.
What would you say was like the biggest thing you learned from the internship? Like coming out, you're choosing between footwear and apparel. Obviously, you're a footwear designer now, and you did the internship with Under Armour. Why do you think that was helpful in your career process as a footwear designer?
I think what was like really pushed on me to do was talk to athletes the whole time. Like if I could do anything in that project to separate myself from other projects was to have like athlete interviews, surveys, visit gyms, visit courts, because it was a basketball shoe project. But that was the biggest thing. That was like a big eye opener for me. That people, not as many people as I thought in the industry, like do that.
Yeah.
And even now, I feel like I definitely don't do it as much, and I should do it more. But that was the big thing. And then towards the end of my internship, I remember like I had a project, and my job was to work on a basketball shoe and design it and show the process of it. And then towards the end, it was like it honestly wasn't really working, and I was really struggling at the end of it. And then had like a last minute meeting with my mentor, and I basically almost like changed almost the whole design. And working under that pressure, I felt like I did well under that pressure, and I
Yeah.
could handle that like going into a job. But it was like talk to athletes in the research side of innovation, and then being able to work under pressure if like, hey, it's not working out, let's rethink it. So
Yeah.
those were kind of the two big things. So yeah.
Something and maybe just like want to nail in. So like, I feel like me personally, I wouldn't say I'm like a big procrastinator, but I'm kind of like, I'm not a very good like do like little chunks. Like say you've got a long process, right? Like let's think of like a semester project at school. Like I'm probably doing like a million other things unrelated to the project until like the week before or like the 2 or 3 days before. But I feel
I
like
remember, and I don't know how you did anything. I'm very impressed with like the balancing of everything.
but I feel like and I don't know, I feel like maybe I'm not like totally alone in that sphere, but I feel like you are very good at like taking the process and like giving the process its like full just due, you know, like the I like when I think of an Emily project, I think of a huge binder with a lot of sketches, a lot of research,
Oh,
like
okay.
everything like physically there, and having like gone through the process. Like if you had a checkpoint, you know, for your process, like you're always hitting that checkpoint. Um, so to hear you say that like you swapped everything at the end and under pressure you're like banging out an awesome design. Um, do you feel like that early process helped you then in like that pressure point, or um, was it
Yes.
like throw it all away and here we're gonna like bring out a
Well,
killer design in the 11th hour?
I would say it didn't go all the way back, but it was more of just like the final design direction.
Yeah,
And so I was a little crazy during that internship, and I had all physical sketches. I didn't use my iPad during that process, except towards like the renders at the end.
yeah,
But I hung them all on my studio apartment wall and made
yeah,
like a mural of sketches. And the research backed up like the design. It was more of just, okay, why don't we rethink the visual? Does it feel Under Armour? Does it feel like this is its own like brand?
yeah,
Because it was very, not that it was very organic, but it had this like cage piece, and because it was based on anatomy, like this the axial cage of like the rib cage and flexible and supportive, um, the visual was very much like maybe too much anatomy in a way,
mm,
and so I kind of simplified it. But like the research still backed up that design, and then it also backed up my final design.
cool,
So I feel like at that point, like that checkpoint for me is always like, okay, get the research, get the mood board, who's the consumer, and then like you can go 50 million directions from there.
yeah,
Uh, and like that's when I'm like the binders, binders of sketches and stuff like
right,
that. But yeah, and I'm glad my mentor was there, kind of like, why is it this? Like, what about this do you like? Or and stuff like that. I remember like sitting there with like a Prismacolor marker on tracing paper and like sketching with him in the office, and it was good to go through that. So
that's cool. So you finish at Under Armour. You've got an awesome project. I remember it being like a beautiful shoe that you had created. Then you have one more year at the University of Oregon before like jumping back into the workforce. I'd be interested to hear. I don't like what do you feel like was the biggest thing you learned from the master's program at the University of Oregon? Like what
oh,
if you
okay.
were to like redo it, or if you had the option to redo it or not, like outside of like friendships, relationships, like what would you say you took away from that experience then like into your career?
Oh, this is a tough question because I feel like I mean that whole program was probably the best. It was honestly probably the best thing that I could have done for myself was one to move
Yeah,
away from home and kind of experience something new from that side of it, and then also like that's how I got into footwear. But I think what I learned out there was like networking.
mm,
Like every week, I remember like the second year we were pushed to meet with someone like every week or something.
yeah,
That definitely I think helped me realize what could be possible within footwear, even if you weren't titled footwear designer.
mm-hmm.
Um, but then also like the research side of it and the testing side of it was something that I had never done before, and I learned a ton from like shout out Gabby, Brian, you learned a ton from
All
you
the
guys
homies.
about like yeah all the homies, and learned about like testing, controllables, the research side. Because I came in, I felt confident in like the design side, and even like tried to get better and better um, each project. But those were kind of the big networking, the testing, and the research um, was kind of what I feel like I've taken a lot from that. from that program.
Cool. Cool. Okay, so here's Emily's trajectory. We've got like love sports, interested in anatomy, started out at Pratt, swapped over to industrial design. Like even before we, I guess to get out of that, like what was that like doing a design program and being a student athlete? I like that. I feel like we can't like move past that without just acknowledging that was probably a huge lift, right?
It was tough. And also like, so I was the first official recruit with Pratt. Like they never went through like a recruitment process. Like in junior high school, they would come to my games. I went to an overnight. I didn't realize they did that for like an art school, which was funny. But when I went there, trying to balance like practice and like studio time, because I'm also like at Pratt, I wasn't studying for tests. It was You're in the studio, you're going to show up with your 10 prototypes in the morning, and then you're going to do it again, kind of thing. So it was tough to balance. And actually, when I switched to ID, because I was like, this is so new to me, I actually didn't play the first half of my sophomore year, which I sort of regret a bit, but I was like, I'm not struggling academically, but I was just like, I just really want to focus on this and make sure I can do it, like handle it well and stuff like that. But what was funny, because it is an art school, I mean, half of my friends who weren't in sports at Pratt and like professors had no idea we had teams.
Yeah.
They had no idea we had teams. And if we had to miss class to go to a game, I've actually had to miss a game because my professor wouldn't let me leave class.
Really?
Yeah, and like one of my friends who was an animation major, her professor was like, well, are you going to go to the WNBA or are you going to be an animator? And she kind of had to make a decision.
Yeah.
So it was pretty wild, but it allowed, like that practice time allowed me to get out of the studio. Otherwise, I would be in there 24/7.
Right.
So it gave me a place to be active, have a great group of friends, be a part of like a team, step away. So that was pretty fun, and it was D3, but it was just something to keep basketball in my life, and yeah, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it.
That's cool. Well, we're gonna hit on your Strava metrics later in the chat and your general athleticism there, but I think that's a really good point. You talked about like, and this is maybe a sidebar, but this is just like conversation, right? But you talked about initially, I just wrote it down, you said like you don't do as many like side like creative projects because your job is creative work, and so it's almost like getting away from that to like hit refresh. So you I guess from your opinion in the end that it almost helped you in a way of like,
yes, I think it was
away.
Like I could be I very much like, I still enjoy sketching like outside of like work and stuff, even if it's my own little like, oh, I have an idea. I still do that, but I kind of force myself to take a break because like in school, like at UVO, I was like 110% grad school and like 0% like, Emily, go do something else.
For sure.
So it was definitely a nice like, let's give myself 2 hours to do something else.
So. This is also another sidebar, but you talked about like people at Pratt not knowing there was like a sports program. So I guess as we're going through your progression here, you graduate from Pratt, you move on to doing a master's degree from the University of Oregon in sports product design, which is where we met.
Yep.
Do you consider yourself like an Oregon Duck, like a sports fan?
A little bit. I feel like I have to because like Pratt
like
doesn't
the affiliation,
have right? Or like I'm like gonna be yelling like "Go Cannoneers!" So right. But I am a Ducks fan, and like it was funny because like they've had the game on at places in Boston, and I'm like, "Go Ducks!" Woo!
Right. Because I like the way I describe it is that I'm like an Oregon Ducks sports fan when it like suits me in a conversation, I guess, because
yes.
where
Don't
like
ask me their names of the players and whatnot. I have no
for
idea.
sure, for sure. I know like Sabrina. Anytime Sabrina
Yes.
is playing, I'm all in on the Liberty because Sabrina's a duck. But
Yes.
that's honestly like probably the like who I think of the most. But just because we were in Oregon during COVID,
Mhm.
our program was in Portland, not in Eugene. So I
Yes,
mean,
that was
I
it.
the 2 years I was there, I never went to a sporting event. Did you? Did you ever go to
No, I
anything?
never got to go. I mean,
Yeah.
and I really only got to visit the campus once,
Right.
which was kind of a bummer because I was like, oh, I wish I could see more. But, but yeah, it was, yeah, I didn't really watch the sports either, like when I was there. It was kind of like I felt we were on our own island in a
For
way.
sure. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good description. But okay, I want to make sure you're kind of in the same boat.
Yes.
Um, okay, so you're finishing at the University of Oregon. We know now that you're at NOBULL.
Hmm.
Um, like, what was your process of getting it, like, just nailing your first job? Like, are you like spreading out applications? Did you have some options? Like, what was the um, I don't know. Who like did you know someone there first? Like what did it look like for you to to nail your job?
Yeah, so I mean, I started looking very early, like the beginning of second year, and I would
Mm.
get pushed like they would email me back saying, "Hey, sorry, if you graduate in June, too early, please stay in touch." And I actually would follow up.
Yeah.
Uh, but how I got to Noble was they had a full-time role and then also like what they called a trainee role. So Noble we have had in the past and hopefully we'll have in the future a trainee program. So it's a year-long, almost like apprenticeship, internship, and you're like heavily involved in the design team and
Yeah.
design process, which is really awesome. And I applied to both, and I got email back about the trainee position,
Cool.
and went through the interview process. I didn't know anyone there, but got to meet my now boss and a few other people, which was really, really awesome. And they ended up offering me a full time role, and so it was kind of it. But I applied to a lot of places, and very early on, like starting from maybe October of 21, just to kind of start seeing what's
Yeah.
out there. And I feel like it is so competitive. So I was like, I got to start now before everyone starts getting
For
going.
sure. Okay, so wait, quick. You said October 21, so you got this job summer of 22, right?
Yeah, I got the offer like maybe a couple days before our thesis presentation, and I
Yeah.
hadn't told anyone at that point because I remember there was someone else on the call and stuff like that, and um, yeah, and then I started in July of 22. So I had a month to relax and recoup, and then they allowed me to start when I was out in Portland, and then drove cross country to Boston. So
Yeah.
been there since. So 2.5 years, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you nailed the job. What would you say, or the job interview? You're there. What? And I like that you. So there was a full time role and a trainee role, and then they just hired you, even though you were interviewing for the trainee. They just hired you full time.
Yeah, because I don't think they've hired anyone for the full time, so maybe I
Okay.
kind of ended up taking that position. But I remember like interviewing for trainee, um,
Cool.
which hey sounded very very cool. It was for more of like a sample room innovation role. Sounded exciting, and so yeah, even if it was an apprenticeship, I would have been like sure, yeah,
Oh, totally. That's what I say. I like whatever like experience you can get.
exactly.
But they saw you and they're like, Emily, you're jumping over. We're just going straight full time into
They
football.
saw something in me, so so
Well,
very happy to be there, and there's some good people there, and I'm learning a ton. So all
that's
good
awesome.
stuff. Yeah.
What would you say was like key for you in getting the job? Like we know, like you started early. You were talking to a lot of people, but like, was it so for the Under Armour job? You said they like saw your 30 days of sketching. That was like really interesting to them. But did you know anyone there beforehand, or was it like all your portfolio? What do you think?
I think it was portfolio and like so I had the in progress thesis presentation. I would just constantly be updating it every time we made updates. So that way I could at least show my most recent work. And I remember being like showing like in my NOBULL interview that. And they liked like the research, the process, and then also I had I also showed the Under Armour project to them, and they also liked the process, the research, the sketching, but also liked how like it was very simple and clean, the final design, because that aligns with NOBULL's design language. So that probably also helped that, hey, she's able to do this design language, it aligns with us, she has a great process, maybe this is a good fit. So it's probably a mix of that, but I think also like the program is because it was like titled a sample room training position. Sample room at NOBULL is like this innovation space. It's different materials and constructions and stuff, which is really, really cool. And because the program was very heavily, I feel like innovation focused, all performance based, no, like quite honestly, like, excuse my French, no bullshit, which is what NOBULL stands for. I think that helped in having that education, and all the projects from that program just kind of all culminated to help me.
I'm trying to think, Emily, and maybe this, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Are you because like you said, our program was, I felt like I kind of like describe it to people it's like a master's in like Nike innovation. And maybe that's like, just because a lot of our professors had like Nike backgrounds and different stuff like that, but it was like pushed towards like an innovation team role. But I think you might be the only one that's on an innovation team. Can you think of anybody else that, like, I think there's like innovation in other people's roles, but as far as
it's is anyone else? I feel like everyone's just doing really cool stuff, whether they're on innovation or not. But even like, I feel like right now at NOBULL, like there isn't a separation. I mean, like inline innovation, because we're so small, and we have a team that's made up of people who can kind of do anything. But it definitely helps, because I definitely lean on the concepting side and like thinking more on the future out projects rather than the like next year projects. That's at least where I found I kind of sit. But I do hope to get like either like we create like innovation hub, and it's going to be really cool. We were thinking, 2050. Like I would love to get to that point. So I think we'll slowly get there. We'll get there, but I guess I don't know. I'm
just trying to think. Like I feel like yours is like very like it sounds like very specific towards like what we were doing in the as far as like I think everyone has like really cool jobs, but
it also aligns a lot to like the no bullshit DNA at NOBULL, where they're just like, you're not going to put stuff that's not a function driven piece on a shoe or apparel or equipment. So I feel like the program really like aligned with just like their DNA as a whole, and that helped as well. Because now I had that kind of way of thinking. So it worked out well.
What would you say now that you're in the industry, and someone's sitting at home watching, listening to this, or wherever they're at, like what would you say looking back would be like the best things to know or skills to have in the process? Because maybe not everyone can follow the exact Emily route of Pratt to UO.
So I definitely got lucky in that department, having design already kind of in my toolbox. I guess the good to know, like for me, I'm learning to like ask questions, and like that's how I'm gonna learn things. Even if I shout an idea and the team doesn't agree, then I get reasons why and why not and stuff like that. So when you're there, don't be afraid to ask questions and speak up. And but I think what is interesting, no matter your background, I personally love hearing about the way people think and go through a process, because no one can teach you that.
Yeah.
Someone can teach you to draw, how to use Illustrator, how to use 3D, but no one can teach you process. And so
Hmm.
I think that's like whether you have a design background or not, or whatever your background is, like use that to your advantage because that's like what makes you stand out amongst everyone else.
Cool.
So that's kind of big and vague,
I
but
like that.
that's
Yeah.
kind of at least what I've trying to lean into, like leaning into, hey, I've played sports heavily. I played sports in college. Like I lean into that a lot
Yeah.
of the time because I think that is, that's different from, a bunch of other people and just like how they have a different thing than I do. And yeah. So.
Would you say that, like, because you played basketball, and you did other sports in high school as well, but um, right now you're not working on a basketball shoot, right?
No.
I mean, I don't know,
no.
maybe you can or can't say that.
Wait, no.
Innovation team,
I would
but
love to do basketball one day. I think it's super cool and it's super cool space, but I'm definitely not like where I'm in like the training world, the running world.
yeah,
Right now based on like Nobul's product line. So different from what my thesis was, which is interesting, but also a really cool field and like talking to runners. Like I joined a run club when I moved here to like have a group of friends outside of the office, but now I'm like learning from them all the time about shoes and training and running and what they like and what they don't like, and that's definitely helped, and I pulled that into like my everyday. So not basketball, but I'm adapting to other things,
Yeah.
which is good.
that's cool. All right, well, you already said it. So your Strava Wrapped was absolutely nuts. Like, I think you ran 400 days out of the year, and and so I thought I had done a lot of running this year.
You did though.
And then I saw yours, and I was like, wow, it was like legit. I think half in every single category. What's like so maybe this is like with the like college basketball and design school, like what do you like about running? Like why are you going out and like hitting the miles?
I just like that there's still a little bit of like a challenge that's like only I can do it for myself, and like, okay, I can't rely on anyone else to kind of help me with it. I kind of have to like make sure I do the work to get it done kind of thing. So
Yeah.
like I got into it when I was at Pratt during the off season and got into like running more, and I can run this distance. That's like cool. And now I use it as like still a little bit of like I still have a little bit of a competitive side to me, so I use that to fulfill that basically. But I'm also not trying to, run 6-minute miles. So
For sure.
it's good time to like socialize with people, but also have like outside time, and but also like give myself a little bit of a challenge outside of like design and work and all that. So
Yeah. Do you have like is it like music, podcast, audiobooks, or like just your thoughts? What do you?
Oh, music, definitely. If
Music.
I'm running by myself, 110% music. But if I'm like running with people, we're chatting the whole time. I've tried podcasts, but I just can't. I can't do it. I need a little hype. I need a little help.
And this is like my weird admission, maybe. My brother, told this to my brother, and he said I was like psychotic or something. But I'm like straight just thoughts. Like I'm just.
Oh wow.
I like running like nothing. Like I'm just like thinking, and
What do you think about?
I don't know, like
Everything, or
anything.
do you have
Like
specific thoughts?
like it's like work stuff or just like life or just whatever. Like sometimes I'm just like, wow, like my body really hurts, but
Yeah.
like other times it's like lost in like whatever, like what I don't know, just like my brain like wanders, but it's almost like I don't like listening to anything while I run.
Wow, that's impressive.
Am I psychotic, Emily? Is that like, can you diagnose?
Say, I know people who don't run with music, and I don't know how they do it. I won't judge you for it, but I don't know how you do it. Because even if I have music on, this is gonna sound maybe more psychotic. Sometimes I listen to the same song on repeat to zone out.
Yeah.
And it's just
Okay.
the same song, and I zone out.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm like, you know, like Rhino and Blender, the 3D
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm doing that in my head, and I come back after a morning run to the office, and before I shower, I draw a little thing on the post-it, and then go shower. And
Oh no, legit. Like I'm like literally sometimes I think of like running and like the shower is like just an extension of work. Sometimes
yes,
just,
I'm
like
I'm
mentally.
3Ds in my head,
Yeah.
like sketching.
So I have to tell you why I like got into running. Well, one, I have a dog and she needed exercise, so that was kind of like the first thing. I also did. I was not a collegiate athlete, but I did sports in high school. But it was never like run for enjoyment, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, same, yeah.
I actually remember I did. So I played football, basketball, and tennis was the last sport. And I remember after like the last tennis match of my senior year in high school, like the next week, I was like, I'm joining like the Fit for Life club now. Like people that don't like you're not active because of sports, and I ran like
Yes.
3 miles, and it was terrible. I was like, that's it.
I was always like, how can people just go run? It felt so unnatural. Like I
Yeah.
felt like I don't know how to do it. Like go
Right.
like I don't know how my parents in the morning would go on a run. Like, isn't that weird? Like
Yeah.
to see someone running on the side of the road. Do people like think you're weird? It was because we're not used to that. We played like team sports, so
For sure. And I think people probably do think you're weird if you're running. But that
Probably.
they just haven't like they haven't hit the runner's high yet. But
yes.
so for me it was actually at the University of Oregon, and now I'm spacing his name. So maybe who was our professor for not biomechanics but human physiology?
Brett Kirby.
Brett Kirby. I was gonna say Kirby something. Okay, Brett Kirby. When we learned about VO2 max, and that there
Yes.
was like this threshold that if you didn't get injured, and if you continued to like fuel your body, that you could, in theory, like run forever.
Yes.
Do you remember him talking about that, or am I
Oh
making
my
that
god.
up?
No, I remember learning about that stuff. And actually, because then around that time was when I was like running
Yeah.
consistently around Portland. I'd be like, let's just try to get to that point and see
Right,
what it
so-
feels like.
For like a year, like that point, like has obviously since then like really stuck with me.
Yeah.
But it was like maybe like a year or 2 years later, I was like, I'm gonna just like put this to the test and just like start running. And I have definitely hit the wall many times. Like I've run 2 marathons now, and it's like even when I'm like ultimately trained and I feel like my body is well fueled and I'm not getting injured, it's like still like I'll hit like a mileage and like my brain is just like jello.
Oh my god, yeah.
But-
I hit a wall like I ran a marathon in October, and I remember being like, okay, I'm mentally prepared. I'm gonna hit it at some point. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
It's like you know you're gonna do it, and you got to figure it out from there.
Yeah. Anyways, so I don't know that I could run forever, but I do like that theory. I think it's really interesting, and I really like I've come to like running, but
It's
I'm
fun.
nothing close to your Strava abilities.
I'm what people call a party pacer. I do like the nice, 10-minute miles, pretty chill, not trying to kill myself,
Yeah.
and just going for the vibes kind of thing. But I do like my PR maybe is not a challenge for people to hit, but I do like that there's also that in running, and I found like a very healthy relationship with running and a good crew that treats it like that way.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's been quite nice to like have something post sports.
That's cool. Okay, well, Emily, do you have any like final thoughts? Like, say someone's sitting there, they're inspired by listening to your story, and it's like, what would you say to them on their pursuit into the footwear world?
I would say, don't stop, keep going. Don't be afraid to reach out and network to people. People are very nice and would be happy to do 15 minutes of conversation. And what I always did and what I tell people to do is at the end of any sort of conversation with anyone in the industry, ask who are 2 people you would think are good that I could reach out to, or can you introduce me? That way then it keeps going. You'll learn a lot from talking to people and building relationships like that. So that's something I definitely need to get back into. I've definitely fallen off of it, so I need to take my advice. But that's something I would say helped me at least, and yeah, good to keep doing.
I agree with all of those points, and I co-sign on everything that you've said so far. I think it's totally true. I think that would you say that like footwear was something, and obviously like even like myself like learned about it later that it was like a career option, like would you say that you were like throughout sports and or just like different parts of your life that you were always interested in footwear, or was it just something that kind of like maybe it was like you were more interested in art and then art meshed gruped this passion of sports?
I think art meshed with the passion of sports because I had no idea it existed. I never thought about like, oh, someone has to make shoes. I didn't know that existed. But I think it kind of worked itself out over time. And I kind of then just was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then it kind of was like, okay, narrowed in on footwear, and now it's like big again. And like, oh, there's a lot of things you could do in footwear.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Emily, well, I think you're awesome.
So are you, Doug.
Your career is awesome. You're doing cool things. I'd love to know like what you're working on, but there's probably not the space for you to divulge that. What does the future look like? Can you tell us that, like something broad, like
the future for Emily?
Yeah, the future for Emily, the future for footwear. What?
Ooh. Big question.
You threw out the number 2050 earlier in the conversation. You don't have to go that far, but what are you thinking as a futurist in as an innovation person? What does it look like?
I think there'll be like innovations in materials and assembly methods. Like you're already kind of seeing it, especially in the running space. Yeah. Now that I'm more heavily in that, like it's interesting and really cool to see some of the things that are happening. Mm-hmm. And also just like now, like I've been trying to dabble in AI, which I know some people love it, some people hate it. I don't know, but it generates some interesting things that just make you think differently. And it's not that it's creating a new design, but it's making now you think differently. And I think that will spark different ways of problem solving to then advance materials or aesthetics or constructions. So I feel like there's stuff happening. I haven't been able to even probably see all of it or like understand all of it, but there's probably some interesting things happening. And then also like niche sports coming up. I feel like I've learned a bit more about different sports that are happening, even like high rocks and CrossFit and stuff. Like, okay, people wearing alpha flies for that. Should they? I don't know. I think there'll be different sports and areas of sport, and that will then just tumble into so many different things. I probably don't even have an answer right now, but
I mean, like, did pickleball even exist like 5 years ago? I don't know. Like,
I'm like, how did that start? I would love to know how that started. If someone was just like, it's probably if it has like a really deep history to it, I apologize. But like, did it start by somebody just being like lazy and being like, we're gonna play the tennis court this size?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to run.
Maybe someone forgot their racket and like only had a ping pong paddle or something.
Yeah, that too.
But okay, cool. Well, I'm excited for the future then. I think it sounds interesting.
Yeah, can I ask this? What do you have coming up for your stuff? Because landed footwear and all? Like, that's a great question. We're looking at new colors coming, some new designs.
it's kind of like being a part of a startup. It was almost like we had this idea, and we thought it solved a problem, and then it's like the consumer gets it and it's like, okay, well, maybe it solves a different problem, or like someone's gonna get it and use it how they see fit. And so like we've made like big partnerships and relationships with people in in two spaces. Like I'd say that like here's a landed shoe, right? This is actually a sample, some updates.
Okay.
To a future one, but we've so it's like a shoe that can be used for a lot of things. Like someone could just wear it every single day and that's whatever. But we've made some awesome connections in like the one wheel space. Do you know what a one wheel is, Emily?
Is it like the not a unicycle, but like the motorized ones, right?
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
it's like a skateboard that has one wheel in the middle.
And then you stand to the side.
And you stand on it. It's like you're in like either like left foot forward, right foot forward, depending on like how you stand.
Yes. There is.
And you like lean forward and it goes faster. You lean back, goes slower.
Yes, there's like a gang of those in Boston that randomly on a Sunday as I'm going grocery shopping, I'll see like 30 of them in the middle of the road.
It's probably some wild community, but
yes.
But yeah, so we've like made some crazy connections there. There's like no official one-wheeling shoe, so we're trying to make big partnerships with those people, and that's been really fun. And then we've also seen, it's kind of like just like these niche groups. There's like disc golfers really like the landed shoe.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
And at least disc golfing here locally gets like really interesting in like hiking, and there's like a lot of like courses on like mountain ranges and different things like that, so they need a little more like walking comfort and
it's like all environment based, which is pretty sick. That's cool.
So there's like, I don't know, and there's one brand that I know of that's like specific to disc golf. And then there's like other just like brands that people wear, but I don't know, we're trying to serve these like small niches that love the product, and then from there maybe it's something that people can still like generally use and like, but we can like serve like our super fans in a way. So
yes. Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, we'll see. There's like the mountain bike community and like the just like outdoor community in general seems to be vibing with it, but yeah, we'll see where the future holds.
Nice. Well, I'm
hopefully
excited.
It's with new materials and cool construction methods as well.
Yes, I can't wait. I can't wait to see that shoe in the 2050 shoe from Landon.
The 2050 shoe will be nuts. Yeah, it might have rockets on it, or it could still be vulcanized with like 300-year technology.
With rockets.
With rockets. There you go. Every good shoe design has to have at least rockets at some point in like the concept phase.
It's gotta at some point.
Yeah.
Cool.
But cool. Okay, Emily. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for talking us through your process and getting to where you're at, and just like pulling the curtain back a little bit on what the future might look like. It's exciting.
Yeah. Check out NOBULL. They got some cool stuff.
Cool stuff's coming. Cool stuff's coming from Emily.
Yes. But,
all right.
cool.
Well, this is the first time ending the podcast, so I don't even know how to end it. But like,
I'm not going to do anything.
Just
do
like
I do anything?
Stand so. No, I think that's it. The podcast is ending for those that are listening.
Like
we'll see ya.